What is going on, RotoGrinders? Dean here. Dean's out of work. You want to get all practical. Is the music louder today than it normally is? Okay. It was. Well, you know what happened there? You guys can't hear it, but in my ear, I'm yelling at myself because I had the YouTube on and I forgot to turn the volume off. Very unprofessional of me. So I'm screaming at myself in my ear. So, yeah. Hey, we're back. Take two, right? We're going to pretend like that didn't happen. Hour and 45 minutes nonstop NBA DFS conversation, taking you guys all up to lock. 6-gamer in the association, pretty well spread out too, right? 7 o'clock game, 8 o'clock game, 9 o'clock game, one every hour. And then we have 3 late games, 2 at 10 and 1 at 10:30. Waiting for a couple players we were talking about at Kyle, a couple players potentially that may shake the slate up in some ways. Keontae George currently questionable. And even if he plays, he's questionable to play that fourth quarter. We saw that didn't happen last time. Jakob Poeltl was sick last night. He's still ill, currently questionable. Potentially could open things up for like Sano Mamaskelefili for Toronto. Dosunmu is questionable for Minnesota, but for the most part, we got a good chunk of the news. Officially doubtful is Josh Hart. We're assuming he is out tonight in Utah. Kyle, hour and 45 minutes. We're here for an hour. And then we hand it off to TJ Zwarich, as well as I think Noto. Noto's jumping in. Yeah, so they're jumping in, taking you guys home for crunch time. How are things, Kyle? I feel like it's been too long. Maybe it's only been a week. I'm not really sure. Time's a flat circle, they say.
No, yeah, it has been a minute since I've been on an RG show. So yeah, good to be here talking some hoops with you. Obviously, right now we're in the growth stretch of the NBA where we see a lot of craziness going on with teams tanking and rotations switching up and whatnot. But yeah, looking forward to it.
2 of the biggest offenders are on the slate too, and they're playing later on tonight, Utah and Sacramento. Sacramento did a horrible job beating the Pacers last night, right? That was just disgraceful. And Sacramento's been winning way too much of late. So they're nervous and they're benching some guys today. They have to punish some of the players for playing too good, for beating inferior teams. We have Russell Westbrook. Yeah, like some of the news is already been established. Westbrook is out. Sabonis, of course, out for the year. I think Levine's out for the year. I'm pretty sure. Hunter, I want to say, is out for the year with his eye. Keegan Murray, are we going to see him? I'm not sure. I don't think so. Certainly not tonight. Malik Monk is also out. Sacramento, I think, is down to, is it 8 or 9? We got 9. Okay. Did somebody just get added? Was there 8 earlier, or did I just making that up? Like maybe it's
been 9 since all the kind of the news dump came, so maybe you missed a key name like Patrick Baldwin or something like that.
I think that's who I missed, actually. I didn't carry the one with Patrick Baldwin. Yeah, I guess we're going to have 9. UCF won. I forgot to take note of that. Shout out to UCF. Go Knights. They beat Cincinnati. Thank you, Steve, for letting me know. All right, that's right. We got to take on Chop's Cougars. Win a couple more games, I suppose. Meet them in the finals. But yeah, shout out to UCF. Tournament bound, maybe. We shall see. You can see how big of a college basketball fan I am. I wasn't even watching it. I knew they were playing today at 3 o'clock, but I had no clue. I assume you care. You probably like Michigan, I assume. Yes, Michigan Wolverines, is that your team?
Yeah, pretty easy to bandwagon for them right now. I like to call myself a March college basketball fan. Don't really – I mean, it's hard when you're so deep in the NBA streets to pay too much attention to college basketball. I try to here and there. Obviously, friends like to watch college basketball, so when in group settings, that's on a lot, especially right now with Michigan, and even Michigan State's pretty big around here still. They're having a decent year. So I would say a casual college fan, and then I like to role play as somebody who is deeper in those streets once college basketball tournament rolls around, and then I light some money on fire come the tournament. So hopefully we can reverse course and win some money this year. But yeah.
There's a lot of fraudulent college basketball fans, I think, and they all get fired up during March. I feel like that's more so than any other sport, I think. That's how college basketball goes. 6-gamer tonight. We'll dive in here in just a second. I do have to ask. I mean, you told me before the show you liked my backdrop. Everybody's angry. Everybody's mad at Bam Adebayo. He didn't score 83 points the right way. He didn't do it the right way, You're not allowed to do it with free throws is the rule. That's not even you can't pass Kobe. You're not allowed to pass Kobe. That's insulting. That was mean to Kobe. You're not allowed to do it. But 83 points, the most points ever seen actually visually. Nobody really knows the Will Chamberlain thing. We're just kind of taking their word for it, right? That was on radio. But did you watch any of this? Did you monitor it. How much, the Heat last night, of course, in DFS, you probably had 4 or 5 Heat players because it was the perfect storm, facing essentially the best defense to face, and they were without their other 3 players that can actually score in Hero, Wiggins, and Powell. But yeah, you have any thoughts? Do you want to congratulate Bam Adebayo?
Yeah, I would love. I mean, I already texted him last night, said congrats. So he I was probably one of the first people to text him. So he definitely got my congrats there. But yeah, just in case you didn't see that text for some reason, congrats again to Bam. I will say, the people who are, upset by it. I mean, I know people like to just be upset for fun these days, because why not? Why celebrate something when you can, be upset? But the Kobe angle is a crazy thing to be upset about. If you wanted to be upset, I guess you could be upset because of the free throws and whatnot. I think it's still a little ridiculous because, I mean, they're still playing the basketball game, and he still made, 35 free throws or whatever it was. So, like, he easily could have, not gotten to the line that many times, or he could have, missed more free throws. So I think that is a little silly. I will say, like, seeing the stat was insane. Like, it was like, wow, that's a crazy stat, no doubt.
36 for 43, I think it was. I want to say 36 or 43 at the free throw line. And by the way, they were all legitimate fouls. If you saw like the reel of every single foul, it wasn't nonsense fouls. They were legitimate fouls.
Right.
Yeah, and there was a little bit of chicanery at the end of the game if you were watching it. It was pretty ridiculous because, Washington all of a sudden I didn't know they had the ability to feel shame, but they were feeling shame at some point, and they said, "Hey, you know what? Maybe we should play some defense." And they were triple teaming him, like in the front court, like before he even crossed the line. They were triple teaming him, double teaming him, and every play Miami was feeding. They wanted him to, he was firing up threes with 3 guys on him. Which, by the way, Kobe didn't do that. Every shot Kobe took wide open. He didn't force any shots when he scored his 81. He scored 81 perfectly, the most perfect way you can score 81 points. And then Miami at the free throw line up 25. Oh, before that, they challenged the play. There was a foul on Bam up 25 like 2 minutes ago. They challenged the play because it was an offensive foul. They didn't win the challenge. Somebody else was at the free throw line. They missed the second shot on purpose in the hopes that Bam would get the rebound, which he was going to get if Washington wasn't fouling him, which he actually didn't call on a weird box out. There was some nonsense going on for sure, but he also scored 31 in the first quarter, by the way, and dropped 5 threes.
Yeah, and I think at one point,
20.
Yeah, and I saw Ime Udoka come out and like kind of throw shade at it. He was like, "Yeah, I saw you only did that with 6 threes." First of all, 6 threes in an NBA game, I would love to see him go out and do that. Like, that's a great game, especially for someone who isn't known for, like, obviously, if we see, Steph Curry goes out and hits 14 threes in a game, obviously that would be like, okay, kind of more of Steph's prototype, but 6 threes for Bam. Like, if we're like, Bam's going to have an 80-point game, did we think he was going to go and hit 15 threes? No. And and they threw some shade at Washington, which is fair. That is obviously the matchup that a team is going to do that against. But I think the shade or the anger around it is kind of ridiculous. There was one stat that Joe Delera, who does a lot of work on the Action Network, tweeted out, which I thought was hilarious. Bam took more free throws in last night's game than all but one player so far this month in March. Kawhi has 46 free throw attempts in March. No other player has, so in one game compared to the whole month. So that's insane. But it was certainly a staggering number, seeing all those free throw attempts, but also a fantastic game. And he did it all by himself. I mean, there was nobody else around him. Like you said, all the attention was on him, and he still got it done. And I think at one point I saw he had like 63 points with a couple minutes left in the third. So he even finished the game with like 20 points probably in the last, 13 or 14 minutes. I know he didn't. I think he got pulled with like 30 seconds left to go. So
he played the entire second half, I think, with the exception of the last few seconds. I want to say.
Yeah. So fantastic game. Props to Bam. Anybody who's upset about it, I think, should take a look in the mirror.
And his girlfriend was in the stands too. She was at the game. His mom was there as well. There was a photo like in the press conference, like him and his girlfriend Asia. Like she's got the biggest number ever in the WNBA. So the two of them together, what a power couple. Miami did. Now, if there's going to be anything shady, Miami did is that they fouled Washington to get more possession. So Washington had the ball, I think, a minute and a half to go because like, wait, you're pulling nonsense. We're going to pull nonsense. So Miami intentionally fouled Washington to stop the clock. And Heat culture no longer exists now, I'm told. Now the Heat culture just doesn't exist because the classy thing to do would let him score 81 and then just take him out. That's the classy thing.
Okay, I know this is gonna sound like maybe bad, but like if Kobe is alive, do people still have that sort of thought process on it? Like,
I mean, yeah, it's a tragedy that Kobe died, obviously, but like that you shouldn't. That means you can't beat his records.
yeah, I mean, who
You know?
knows? Maybe at one point he's like, I'm gonna go for Wilt's number. Obviously, that'd be a stretch there. He only need another 17 points, but
Yeah.
um, are we gonna say that nobody can try to break these records anymore? So, yeah.
I can't remember if it was the first pair or the second. I guess it was the second pair all time of players to score 100 points. Bam Adebayo and Simone Fontecchio. So shout out to Simone Fontecchio. The two of them together combined for over 100, which I think it's the second time it's ever happened, I want to say. I guess Wilt and somebody, right? Somebody else, any pick a player. And then Fontecchio, who scored, I think, 17 or 18. So, all right, let's do it. Let's dive in as far as tonight's slate. If you hit the old optimize button, we have the money to pay up for Joker. It looks like we're going to get some Kings in our life. There's no point guards left for Sacramento, so it appears that Killian Hayes is next man up. Plowden, that's his name. That name again, Plowden is going to project for a ton of minutes here for Sacramento as well. We mentioned there's only 9 for the Kings. They're up in the back half of back-to-back. Other teams in the back half, it's Charlotte, Houston, Minnesota, and Toronto. Minnesota didn't really travel. They've been in LA, so they're up in the back half of back-to-back. They're on the road, but they played the Lakers last night. 2 teams in the front end. It's Denver and Orlando. Biggest team total on the board is New York, and Utah. What are you seeing as far as the slate overall before we dive in and do the old game by game?
Yeah, I mean, like we've talked about it a little bit, but not a ton of news that we're waiting on. So, and even the news that we are waiting on, it's not necessarily slate altering. Keontae George is, I guess, a fairly big name that would certainly help some of these Utah guys. And once they get thin, they kind of don't have a choice to play some of these guys. I know that can be frustrating at times, kind of predicting when they're actually going to let these guys play minutes. But I would say that's certainly the biggest thing that we're waiting on. In terms of stuff that we've already gotten, also not a huge amount of news. Obviously, the Kings got their, they gave us the big news dump earlier with all of their guys out, so they're pretty thin right now. And you highlighted some of the names that are popping in the optimal right now, and I think that's rightfully so. Charlotte's not necessarily the matchup that we've known them to be over the last couple of years, but when a team's down to nine guys on a fairly small slate, there's certainly going to be some interest there. It's going to be really, really interesting thinking about playing, Killian Hayes as chalk in 2026. So
he's super chalk.
Yeah. And he's what, 3-1 on DraftKings. So I get it.
Mm-hmm.
As long as we get the starting lineup as expected, which he really is the only true ball handler left on this team. So I would be pretty surprised if he doesn't start, unless they want to, let Clifford or maybe DeRozan handle the ball a bunch. But, DeRozan's probably not going to play a ton anyway. So I would expect Hayes to start, but even if he doesn't, I would still expect he's in line for 26 to 28 minutes on a minimum level there. So it's going to be fun to discuss and think about. But overall, it certainly feels like a March NBA slate.
Intelligent reviews in chat says we want to see stats, not your faces. I hear you. Well, the lineup HQ, I'm sure we shut off here in a second. Producer Steve,
what's wrong with our faces?
Well, I get it, but they want to see like the lineup HQ tool, and they do. Yeah. They should be impressed by your fabulous beard. That's really coming nicely.
I worked on it just for him, and now he's leaving. Bummer.
Well, we were just gonna show some stats, but so much for that. You mentioned DeRozan. I was kind of surprised he wasn't scratched. I know that whatever. I figured they go down to 8. He's the first guy that goes bye though, and potentially doesn't play in the 4th because but they're 14-point dogs or whatever it is. You ever think you'd see the Charlotte Hornets 14-point favorites on the road, like versus anybody? Look at that. Shout out to the Hornets. Okay, let's do it. Let's do the old game by game. Cleveland, Orlando, 226.5. That is the very first game on the board. This is the first half of the ESPN doubleheader. And look here you go. Here's some stats. Shout out to Lineup HQ. Shout out to producer Steve. The Magic are 4-point dogs here at home. Who's in? Who's out? Anthony Black is still out with that abdominal issue. Franz Wagner, haven't seen him in a while, of course, with his ankle. They said Max Strus is coming soon, possibly this weekend, but he's still out. We've yet to see him this season. James Harden is on the injury report with that thumb. He's playing through it. Jared Allen is still out with his knee. This to me, well, you tell me. Orlando, Cleveland, no real major and nothing really new. Like Black is out. We're going to see De Silva presumably continue to start here, but Prices are adjusting. There's probably better value plays on the board. How you feeling about Cleveland and Orlando, O-Town?
Yeah, I think there are some guys here that do project pretty well on a point per dollar basis. I think Orlando specifically has a couple of guys that I have interest in. De Silva looks pretty good here at 4-4 on DraftKings. Obviously you mentioned all the guys that are out. Franz Wagner, Anthony Black. That's going to allow De Silva to continue to start. And we have seen some fluctuation with his minutes, but the minutes ceiling has been really, really solid for him as of late. Over the last 4 games, which is kind of ironic because these are the games where he's been starting, he's topped out at 31 minutes. But in the last 10 games, he's actually played 3 games of 35 minutes or higher. So the ceiling has been there for minutes. I think it is interesting that when he's been starting the last few games, black out, that hasn't been the case. But still, I think he has upside to play 32 plus minutes. I think we have him projected at 29. So I think that's a good median number, but I think the ceiling there is higher. Same for Wendell Carter Jr. here, who I think he's been hurt by some recent blowouts and foul trouble last game in that Milwaukee game. I believe that was the either the Saturday or Sunday afternoon game. He actually got up to a pretty good start in the first half, but just didn't really play a ton of minutes in the second half of that game due to blowout. I think same thing in the Minnesota game. So Wendell Carter Jr. They do have Mo Wagner and Goga behind him to take some minutes. So I don't think he'll ever be pushed for 35 plus minutes in the spot, but I do think he has 32, 33 minute upside here. So those 2 guys in the value range I like quite a bit. Jalen Suggs at 6'7", I think is underpriced. Javon Carter, even at 3.5, I think is a value play. And then on the other side, my favorite Cleveland option is Donovan Mitchell here. They've been pretty easy on his minutes as well, but since returning from the, I think he missed 3 or 4 games, maybe a couple more, a couple less. But he was out for a while, came back in that Boston game, played 34 minutes. Last game, played 31. I think, again, he has upside for 34, 35 minutes here if this game stays close. So, Donovan Mitchell at 9.2, I like quite a bit here.
The game you're talking about, Carter played 22 minutes. He played good in those 22 minutes, but they blew out Milwaukee by like 40. And the previous game to that, they also handled Minnesota pretty good by about 30 or so. So the minutes got subdued. I just rarely find myself playing Wendell Carter. I understand the price is down. He rarely breaks a slate because he doesn't really hit threes. He's not an amazing rebounder. He's not a lock at center for a double-double, not even like a good bet for a double-double most nights. Yeah. He's just somebody that very few times it's like, man, I wish I had Wendell Carter. Not necessarily he's blowing your team up, but he's just kind of like a last man in at center if I like everything else, that kind of thing. I never start with Wendell Carter Jr. is kind of the point.
Yeah, agreed.
Most popular play here currently on DK is Mitchell. You said you like Spider a good bit, 19%. We saw Javon Carter earlier in the day actually was popping. He was quite popular because he was the cheapie du jour, but he's been replaced. He's 4 hours ago because of the Sacramento stuff. I guess now he's kind of contrarian, right? Landry Shamet is like somebody that probably passed him by. We'll talk about him with the absence of Hart. And again, the aforementioned Sacramento stuff, which we'll get to, which is going to be projecting much better. But this game, like nothing really is like a must play if you're making one lineup, I don't think. But certainly, Mitchell can be in the pool. Suggs is – a lot of guys just, to me, are just fine. Banchero's fine. Bane is fine. And that's kind of what ownership is reflecting as well that I'm seeing. And on FanDuel, it's Mitchell's coming in at 23% over there. Mobley's got a better price at 7.9. I like that pretty good on FanDuel with no Allen. But I don't really like this game on the whole. Like it's not one of my favorites, but certainly maybe plug in one player and just kind of build beyond that. Or just flat out skip it. I don't make a lot of lineups. I don't know about yourself, so I don't know how much of this game I'm going to be getting. That could be regrettable, but we shall see. Anything else we want to say as far as Cleveland and Orlando, or shall we scoot along?
Yeah, I think real quick, I would say I do echo a lot of your sentiments. I don't think this is like the best game per se, but I do think it's going to come with some lower ownership. I am curious. I think it is kind of a potential coin flip scenario between who Jalen Suggs defends tonight, whether it's Harden or Mitchell. I don't feel great about determining that. I would guess Harden, and that's why I do like Mitchell, because I do think that the ball can be funneled away from Suggs quite a bit, because Suggs is a great defender. So I wanted to highlight that. Forgot to mention that when I mentioned why I like Mitchell quite a bit. But yeah, I think this game is just one that I do think will be pretty low owned. So I don't think we'll see many guys, over 15 to 20% in this one on a small slate. So I do think that, game should be close, 3.5 point spread. We've seen games like this blow out before, but if the game does stay close, I think we could see a lot of minutes for some of these guys and be pretty low owned. So I do agree, though, that it's not necessarily, certain gems in this one.
Somebody in chat said Charlotte's going to be in the finals. That's pretty ambitious. Who's the most likely team for you? You're going to go chalky on me? Who's the most likely team well, just give me your finals projection right now. What do you have in the – and I know you're a Pistons fan, so feel free to factor that in.
Yeah, I do think that, I would love to see the Pistons. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I completely was wrong. I probably have even said it on this show before. I was completely slapped in the face with being so unbelievably wrong about Jason Tatum. Didn't think he would come back at all in the regular season. I thought it would even be a stretch. Not only is he back, he's playing more minutes than I expected off the bat, and he looks pretty good. So I would unfortunately have to probably say Celtics are probably my favorite right now from the East. And then I'm going to take the Spurs on the West as well. I do like the Spurs. I think Thunder are rightfully the chalky option there, but we've seen the Spurs have the Thunder's number quite a bit. So if they face off in the Western Conference Finals, I would not be opposed to backing them there. So I'll go Spurs and Celtics right now, which is not the most unlikely combination. I'm sure plenty of people would likely agree with that, but yeah, that's what I would say.
OKC is the favorite. San Antonio is the second favorite. Boston is the third favorite. Actually, it's 2 and 2A. San Antonio and Boston are both 6-1 currently to win the championship, according to FanDuel Sportsbook, which I pulled up. Thunder plus 130. So, and that's a big drop off to like Denver or Cleveland. And then there's another tier after that. Toronto takes on New Orleans. This is a full hour later after Cleveland and Orlando. Next game up. Let's see, Toronto. Well, this is kind of important, right? TJD to some extent, he's questionable with his he's got a hand, but even more important, Jakob Poeltl. Jakob Poeltl had the fish. He was out yesterday. He's still questionable. We'll see if he's back tonight. The old jambalaya in New Orleans. And then we already mentioned CMB. Murray Boyles is out with his thumb. New Orleans is really healthy with the exception of Bryce McGowan. So I think they said he's done for the year. Did I see that? I think he shut down. He's got a toe, so he cannot play basketball anymore. Otherwise, they are fully healthy. We got the old revenge game for Brandon Ingram, who's been in bad form. Maybe this is a little bit of revenge will be good for him. We shall see. But yeah, Toronto and New Orleans. How you seeing this one?
Yeah, I think obviously the Poeltl news I think is pretty important. I mentioned Wendell Carter, but I would prefer Jakob Poeltl here. Better matchup for him, and also similar price point. I think from a minutes perspective, Wendell Carter I do think has a higher ceiling for minutes, but I think Poeltl probably has that tighter minutes range there, so maybe a little bit of a safer minutes projection as well as equal to maybe even higher per minute upside. Great matchup here against the Pelicans. If he's out, I do think that right now the Jackson Davis news doesn't really matter, but if Poeltl's out, then it does, because he could slot in for mid-teens minutes, and that would affect Mamu, or maybe he even ends up getting the random start and factors in a little bit more at 3K. But if Poeltl plays, I like him quite a bit. If Poeltl and Jackson Davis are out, I think Mamu becomes one of the better plays on the board. I think even if Poeltl's out, Mamu probably becomes one of the better plays at 4-6. So that's certainly some news worth monitoring. I think all of the big four for Toronto are in play here. This game actually, surprisingly, even though the Pelicans have been kind of hot or cold, they've been pretty good as of late. They're getting healthier. DeJounte Murray's obviously back. Trey Murphy's back. Herb Jones is back. So they've been better as of late and healthier as of late. But 2.5 point spread. I mean, that's a pretty close game here. So I do think there's some minutes ceiling for these guys. And this is also, I believe, still the game with the highest total on the board. It was a couple hours ago when I looked. I doubt they moved too significantly where that's different. But so I think this Toronto spot is one where I'm going to have at least 2 or 3 guys from the team, because it's probably going to be one of the big four: Scotty Barnes, Brandon Ingram, RJ Barrett quickly, and then one of these big men right now, Jakob Poeltl. But if he's out, then it would be Mamu. So yeah, for me, I do like this Poeltl spot. And then if I had to rank these big four, I would go Barrett, then Scotty Barnes, then Brandon Ingram, then Emmanuel Quickley. But Emmanuel Quickley, if he's going to be fairly low owned, I do like him as a high ceiling option. But RJ Barrett would be my favorite here at 6'8". Maybe it's just like a tiebreaker because he's the cheapest, but also does project pretty well for me at 6'8".
I think at least your name's on it. It looks like you did the if-then stuff just to put some numbers to it. Sandro Mamakashvili, if we happen to lose Jakob Poeltl, we're projecting 28 minutes for him. He's about a fantasy point minute player. I would also just add, you tell me, I think it would benefit if Poeltl's out. I think it would benefit Barnes because we see a little bit more Barnes at the 5. You can certainly go smaller here against New Orleans. So I think it's a kind of a sneaky bump if Poeltl's out to Barnes. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. This was the if-thens were Rich today, so shout out to Rich. He does a lot of great work on the projection team as well. But Mamu, I think 28 minutes, I think that's a good projection there. But I do agree. Yeah, it would not only help Barnes from a minutes perspective, maybe a slight bump there, but from a rebound rate perspective, I think that could help Barnes quite a bit. So yeah, it's a good call.
How do you feel about Zion?
I think he's in a kind of a spot where he's sort of, smushed in the middle of some of these guys, like even on his own team. Like I do think that I probably prefer DeJounte Murray at a little bit of a cheaper price tag because right now, like I don't feel like there's that much of a gap in terms of minutes ceiling between those two. So I do like Murray quite a bit, and then Trey Murphy I also like. So for me, I have no problems with Zion. I think he's a good tournament play. He does grade out pretty well in that aspect, but I do think I give the slight edge to DeJounte Murray. So for me, I'd probably say Murray, and then Zion and Trey Murphy are tied with my second favorite option for the Pelicans right now.
Most popular plays currently on DK, we're looking at Barrett at 28%, Poeltl 21%. Obviously, he has to play. And I assume that if you lose Poeltl, Sandro would swallow basically all that ownership because currently he's not going to be rostered. I don't think, right? I have to scroll all the way down. Yeah, he's not going to be rostered at 4.6, basically non-existent, the ownership, if we have Poeltl playing. Quickly, 18%, Zion 15%, Ingram 15%, Murray, DeJounte that is, at 13%, and Murphy at 10%. Anything different on FanDuel, or is it pretty similar? Ingram 37%, Barrett 34%, Quickly 35%, so a little bit more popular. It is I was looking at the points. I was looking at fantasy points, which is similar for some of these numbers. 37% for Ingram on FanDuel, but 27% for Barrett on FanDuel, and 25% for Quickly, 20% for Zion. Poeltl, you can only roster one center over there. I don't know if I like that so much. If he's 6K and 11%, if my only center is Poeltl, I guess maybe. But have we seen a ceiling Poeltl game of late? And he's been dealing with that back. I feel like we haven't really seen that. And he's best roster just kind of when he's cheaper. But he was good last time.
I think he also had a good game against Washington a few games ago, maybe.
Yeah, that happens. Yeah. It wasn't exactly Bam, but he did. 18 and 10.
18-10, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll take that all day tonight.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess if he's playing, I assume he's fine as far as the illness. I assume he's fine as far as the back as well. You got anything else as far as Toronto and New Orleans?
Nope. I think we covered it all.
Hit that like button. Do subscribe.
Sorry. I guess real quick, Mr. Richard did ask, do we like Sadiq Bey? I think for me, I'm just getting to the other three top end Pelicans guys before him, so no interest in Bey tonight. Sorry.
It's a meat in the bone question, right? Like he's been good, but now he's 6'7", and is that like basically the most he's been all season long? I feel like that's about as high as his price gets. He's 6'8". Has he gotten the 7s just yet? No, but this is essentially the peak of his asking price. So, he's got to drop like a 40 spot for you. I guess he can. He could score 30 real life points, but not something I'm prioritizing. It doesn't sound like you are either.
Yep.
Okay. Game number three in Utah. All right. 230.5 is the total, but both of these points are more than 50% are being dispersed to New York. New York is a 14-point favorite here in Utah tonight. This, by the way, another hour ahead. We're now at 9:00 on the third game. New York fully healthy with the exception of Josh Hart. Josh Hart officially doubtful. We kicked him out of projections. We're starting Brunson, Bridges, Shamet, OG, and Cat. As far as Utah, John Konchar is out with his calf, and that's kind of important just because they need ball handlers. We have Keontae George, who's officially questionable. If he doesn't go, they're going to be thin on ball handlers. And you mentioned that we talked about that before. If he doesn't go, like Collier now is 8-1. Like, he's going to get more of a role. And we've also seen him get rug pulled too sometimes. It's probably not going to happen against New York because they're just probably going to lose and they can just keep him out there for the most part. But they have 11 players and 4 centers. It's a very strange Shibwe and Love and Bamba, Filipowski. He could play the 4, I guess. Like if you look at they're just much thinner as far as ball handlers. Do you think George plays? If he plays, can you play him? Can you trust that he's going to play enough? Like you're begging for 30 minutes. You're begging for him to see some of the fourth quarter. I'm starting with Utah, but I guess if you want to touch on the Keontae George thing, and I guess we'll talk about our projections there when it comes to the FDM. But yeah, let's knock out Utah first. How you feeling about the Jazz?
I mean, the Keontae George stuff, like I would like to say I have a lean on it, but like the Jazz is just like it's almost impossible. Like even last game, Ace Bailey was out. Obviously, all the other existing injuries that they've had there was all the reason in the world to think that Keontae George was going to play like 29, 30 minutes, which they had been doing pretty consistently in the 3 games prior. He played 24 minutes. They didn't play him at all in the fourth quarter because that game was close. You could make the case to say, okay, since it's a 13.5 point spread, they're playing the Knicks, they should get whooped. Maybe they do let Keontae George play some time in the fourth quarter, but like it's kind of like a weird way of thinking. Like, okay, you want the game to actually blow out to where the Jazz don't have to worry about potentially winning. It's a crazy concept, but that is kind of where I'm at. So if Keontae George does play, I would actually feel better about his minutes in this game rather than in a game with a crazy, close spread, or maybe a game that ends up close. And yeah, sure, 13.5 point spread, it could end up close anyway. But if I have a lean on whether he plays or not, I truly don't. I guess right now, since it's a Jazz, I would guess that they sit him because that's what they've been doing throughout the course of the year anyway. But, I truly don't know. I do think that if he does sit, it could be one of those, big spike games minutes-wise for Collier. Obviously, he had that stretch where he played like 48 minutes, 2 or 3 games in a row a month ago or so. I don't think that would necessarily be the case here because they do still have Bailey. They still have Harkless around. So I don't think that's necessarily a lock, but I do think we could see him play 32-plus minutes. But, yeah, for a Keontae George guess, I don't really have a great feel there.
Yeah, and even if he doesn't play, well, let's see. What does our if then have? Like, I don't know how many minutes you can give to Collier because the days of the 48, I guess, are no longer a thing, unless, of course, maybe they just let him go because they're losing anyway. Like we had that run of 2 or 3 games or so when he played all 48 because there's no point guard still standing. We are giving 32 to him for what it's worth, but again, you just don't know, and it's hard to project, and a lot of it's game flow. And the game flow is, are they losing? Okay, they're losing, so they're more likely to stick with their better players, which, like you said, it's completely backwards. But, that's what Utah is doing. We just have to understand that and adjust as best we can. One thing they're doing is they're playing Cody Williams a ton of minutes, but he's not good at basketball or fantasy basketball. Do we care? He's playing 35 minutes in his last 3 games, at least 35. Do we care about that or not really?
Yeah, it certainly goes to show like the ceiling that he has minutes wise, but I will say it's worth noting that in that stretch, we've also had a game where he randomly played 11 minutes, which by the way, was a game that I took an over on for him. Not that I'm salty about it or anything, but
I'd be salty.
But yeah, it was funny seeing because he played like 32 plus minutes in like 3 games before that, and then after that he played a bunch of minutes as well. But yeah, I mean, it certainly does help that he's continued to play big minutes, and I would say that he's probably either him or Ace Bailey are probably the 2 guys that they would want to give develop minutes to. Down the stretch here, the rest of these guys I don't think necessarily matters a ton. They kind of probably know what they have with a lot of these guys, or some of the guys just don't really matter in terms of long-term plans. But so we could see that happen. But I think 30 to 33 minutes is probably a decent range here.
I started the day and how I kind of attacked the slate. I was like, New York's got the biggest team total. It's a kind of a baby slate, right? It's not that big. And we had both Brunson and Cat projecting pretty low, like in the teens. Now that number's gone up throughout the day, in part because now we have value. We could spend up a little bit more. And I guess more specifically because Hart is out. So like I guess the minutes and the roles a little bit more solidified. But it's still, if we're talking about Brunson at 23%, that just seems a little bit too low for me. Cat, now you could pay up for Joker. Joker's in the slate, and he's projected for 15, 16, 17 more raw points than everybody else. And you can certainly pay that off. You can roster 2 centers on DK if you want to go double big spend. But my initial plan on this slate when I was writing the survey was I don't make a lot of lineups, but in every lineup, I'm going to have at least one of Brunson or Cat. Like, I feel like one of those gets there. One of them gets a ceiling game. Even if we get a blowout, New York tends to keep their guys out a little bit longer. They tend to step in that throat a little bit longer. And you figure one of these guys, if they're doing the blown out, one of these guys probably had a big game. How do we feel about that now, though? I'm kind of wishy-washy. But I think I'm going to stick to that. In theory, I want to have Brunson or Cat in every lineup. Do you like Brunson and Cat? How do you feel about New York overall? And I guess it's sort of a lineup build thing, lineup construction thing, but who do you prefer amongst the two, Brunson or Cat? You were on mute, sir.
Sorry about that. I think between those two, that's tough. I had them projected so close, so it's probably just going to come down to I haven't actually built out any lineups yet, so it's probably going to come down to positional wise, like whoever fits best. I would say that theoretically in my head, I think Cat actually is the safer of the two because he probably isn't going to project to play big minutes anyway. So if the game does blow out and they miss out on those minutes down the stretch, he's going to miss out on fewer minutes than Brunson could potentially miss out on, who's typically a guy who could play 37, 38 minutes. I would say he's probably going to play, 34 minutes or so if the game does get crazy, pretty early, which I would expect it does. So I guess I would give the slight lean to Towns there. But again, I do think it's going to come down to mostly positional stuff when actually building lineups. I do also think that I have some other preferred spend up options on the board. Like I think I would still rather play Donovan Mitchell over both of those two. I know he's a little bit more expensive than each of those guys, but I would say they're still in the same price range. But yeah, I think it's pretty close between those two. And then again, there's just a couple other guys that I like. Got some questions about Diawara from J3. Diawara, I think, is going to be really interesting because I think there's a chance that he starts in this one right now. I think we did go with Landry Shamet in our projected starting lineup.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's necessarily a lock. I do think that Shamet would probably project for more minutes naturally, but Diawara is a guy who they could like to see in the back half of this game here if the game blows out, because obviously all these top four guys and Mitch Robb, none of these guys are going to touch the floor in the fourth quarter if it goes sideways. So Diawara is someone that I do have a good amount of interest in, and we've seen him have some spike showings on a permanent basis. Another guy that I have interest in, if you want to get crazy, this is like large field, is Jordan
Alvarado?
Clarkson. Jordan Clarkson for me.
That's even crazier.
Yeah. And there's a real chance that Clarkson doesn't play.
Revenge.
But there's some revenge there. And we know that when he is on the floor, his main purpose in life is to make sure that nobody else touches the ball. So that always helps for DFS. But, if it's a game where he can play 20 minutes, and I do think a lot of that would come down the stretch in a blowout, which we have seen him play in blowout run this season already pretty consistently. So that could be a spot where if he can get 18, 20 minutes, he can certainly pay off at 3-2. He could go, 26, 28 DK points in 18 minutes, and I don't think it would be too surprising. So Clarkson and Diawara, I think for me, are the two guys that I'm looking at. If Shamet does start, I will have some interest, even though he's not necessarily a super sexy option, but he's around 3/4 of a DK point per minute, so that's not too bad. And obviously better on DraftKings with the 3-point bonus. So those three value guys, I think, are the direction that I'm leaning in, rather than these top end guys. Mikal Bridges does project well, but do I really want to do that to myself? I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I don't love him. I feel better about OG if we're going to kind of pair those two together as far as salary.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say Alvarado. This feels like a game where Alvarado can get loose. It's just a question of how much are they willing to play these guys in blowout, like full on blowout. Is Alvarado out there with 2 minutes to go? Probably not. I don't think so.
Yeah, I would guess they would give the point guard minutes at the end of the game to Kolek.
Yeah, and they also might just let Clarkson do his thing. I know we kind of joke about their revenge stuff, but I think that a tiebreaker would be, this guy used to play. He was good there, as far as he had many good games in Utah. He was a usable player for some of his best seasons, right? Is that Clarkson's best seasons in his career in Utah?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, so again, the coach is aware of these kind of things. And Mitch Robb's another one where I think if he gets a certain number of minutes, I think he's really interesting. But it's one of those things where the blowout might be too hard, and he's not mopping up, right? They're always babying him, and they're always they don't play him back to backs. They want to keep him healthy for the playoffs, and it almost would hurt him. I think he's one of those backups that it kind of hurt if the game was severely blown out. But I think he's also one of those guys that probably should be in the pool.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with him.
there was a game on March 6th where they blew out the Nuggets in the closing rotation. They played about the last 9 minutes of the fourth quarter. It was Kolek, Dadier, Sohan, Clarkson, and Hukporti. And I think all of those guys are active tonight. So probably wouldn't – Alvarado was there for that game, so it probably wouldn't be Alvarado. And that would lead me to suggest that maybe even Diawara wouldn't get blowout run. So maybe Diawara, you need him to start to feel better about him at 3-4, which, I mean, I think that he's still going to project for 18 to 20 minutes regardless. And then if he starts, probably 23 to 25 minute projection, and then maybe he gets a few extra. But Clarkson would probably be the main guy that I'm eyeing if you're playing that blowout narrative.
Is Shamet bad chalk? 40%?
Yeah, I mean, I would say at 3-6, like if you told me that we were going to get Shamet at 3-6 versus Clarkson at 3-2 and the game was going to blow out, I would probably prefer Clarkson because I think that, you know, if Shamet plays 28 minutes as a starter and Clarkson plays 18 minutes as a backup, I'd probably side with Clarkson there. So, or maybe it would still be close because, again, like Shamet hasn't been bad on a permanent basis, but 40% for a guy who you need to go out there and hit 4 threes to feel good about isn't my favorite option. But, yeah, it's going to come down to finding that price point or that ownership point for Shamet. And if he ends up not starting and he's still chalk, then he would for sure be a fade for me.
Charlotte, Sacramento, 226.5 is the total. We said Charlotte's a 13-point favorite, depending on 14-point favorite, depending on where you're shopping. It is the back half of back-to-back for Charlotte. Let's see. We got Saloon is out, but otherwise, Grant Williams is out too with his knee. Not very important. Sacramento kind of ran down earlier. All the players that are out, they're down to 9. Much easier to say who's left, who's still standing. Precious, Renault, DeRozan, surprisingly, as far as we know, expected to play. Nick Clifford and Killian Hayes is our projected starter with just 4 players off the bench. That's Daquan Plowden and a couple back. Well, Eubanks, McDermott, and Patrick Baldwin. There's only so much tanking you can do is in-game tanking with 9 players. I'm curious. Well, who do you think is on Sacramento if they're down 15, down 20, down 25, 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter? Who's on the court? Like, who's their closing line if they're just getting shellacked?
It would probably be Hayes, Clifford, Plowden. I mean, Precious could still play in a blowout. I don't think Renault and DeRozan would be out there. So I think it would just be 7 of those, 5 of those 7, not counting DeRozan and Renault, with, I think, Hayes, Clifford, and Plowden being pretty safe options to assume to be out there.
Interesting. I thought Renault was safer than Precious because we've seen him playing pretty deep in blowouts sometimes. Yeah, I don't know. And we've seen Precious get the hook recently too. But that was in a game that was close. So that's the difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think Renault's minutes are safer, but I think from a upside perspective, we've seen Precious play those 38, 39-minute games. But, you know, Renault, for a team that's tanking, he's not bad to have out there because he doesn't play much defense. So he could certainly be out there as well.
I say that all the time about Filipowski and Renault. Like those minutes are more secure than others because while they're good fantasy players, they're good for our world. They give up just as many points as they collect, if not more. There's a reason why those teams are losing when those guys are playing a lot of minutes. Renault is horrific, one of the worst defenders in the league. All right, Charlotte, Sacramento, good matchup for the Hornets. It is the back half of a back-to-back for Charlotte. How are we feeling about the Hornets and the Kings?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Killian Hayes is the talk of the town right now. Massive chalk. I don't think it's really going to be a question of, you know, that he's going to be popular. I think it's more so a matter of how high he gets. We have him at 75%. I've seen some even higher numbers throughout the industry, so I think he's going to be very chalky. I mean, if he does start, I do think that at 3-1 he's going to play, 28 minutes minimum, probably 26 to 28 minutes minimum, and at 3-1, you probably just play him.
And he could play 40.
Yeah,
that wouldn't be shocking. I don't think it would be shocking if he played 40. Not saying he will, but it's possible.
Yeah, and so far this season, I have him as a 0.82 DraftKings point per minute, so that's certainly not bad. I mean, obviously, Killian Hayes gets a lot of shit for being a pretty significant bust. I think he was like the 7th pick for Detroit.
What team drafted him? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, the Pistons. Yeah, and I remember back in the day the Tony Parker comparisons, obviously being a French point guard, but so I think that a lot of that looks bad on him because he is a bust, but from a fantasy perspective, he's not bad. I mean, I do think that he has. I'm gonna like duck when I say this, but I think he has double upside here, like 10 points, 10 assists. So like, he's gonna be handling the ball quite a bit. So yeah, at 3-1, I don't think that the chalk is really high. So it kind of just comes down to how risky you want to get, or if you like any potential pivots at the 3-5 sub 3-5 range, which there are some guys we've talked about, but not nearly as safe as Hayes. But so I do think that he's fine chalk right now.
Yeah, how bad could he be? Right, it's like kind of like what worst case scenario he probably went to like 11. But like I think I'm playing him. Like somebody in chat was asking about it. I'm certainly playing before I'm playing Landry Shamet. Like there's a much cleaner route for Hayes to get points than Landry Shamet. Shamet he can only end up playing 24 minutes or so or something like that, and playing alongside much better players that are more willing to take more shots.
Yeah.
How about Charlotte? How are we feeling about Ball Diabate? This feels like a good spot for Diabate. The Hornets, just in general, great matchup against Sacramento. How deep are they going to go in the back half of a back-to-back? How much of these minutes get pushed? We're giving 28 to Ball, 32 Bridges, 32 Miller, 29 Diabate.
Yeah, this one was a tough one to look at projections wise, because I really do feel like there's a chance that all these guys just play like 25 minutes, these top guys. But I do think a lot of that is dependent on blowout. It is worth noting that Charlotte's the best team on a back-to-back with or in bad rest situations against the spread by quite a clear margin. I mean, I guess that does make sense. They're a very young team, and they've also been one of the hottest teams in the NBA as of late. But yeah, I think there's no reason to not expect them to win this game pretty easily. And if that's the case, like they've been easy on LaMelo all year long. Recently, they've been trying to be easy on Miller and even Kneppel at times. Obviously, both of these guys also happen to play pretty big minutes last game. I think last game those two played more minutes than they have in the last 5 or 6 games. So I think there's all the reason in the world to assume that if the game does go sideways, which it should, those guys are going to be held back minutes wise. So I don't really have a lot of interest in any of those guys. I think if you are building, I would probably recommend having a setting in lineup HQ that suggests only one of those 4. And yeah, Diabate I think is fine at 5.9, but I don't think I'm going to get there either.
Diabate or Pirtle? It's a Pirtle plays a similar price point.
Yeah, I'm taking Pirtle there. Yeah, you get $400 cheaper. They project for, I think Diabate has him by like 1 fantasy point for me, so $400 cheaper for Pirtle. And I think that again, if the game does go sideways, there's a chance Diabate comes down from that 28.5 minutes, 29 minutes down to like 25 or 26. And then obviously Pirtle would probably surpass him in projections there. That game's more likely to stay closer. So I think my favorite Hornets play would probably be Kobe White here. He's going to be pretty much immune to blowout risk because he's just going to play 20 minutes likely regardless. And at 4.8, he can go out there and score 20 points in 20 minutes. So I don't love him, but he would probably be my favorite Charlotte play.
He definitely seems like the kind of guy that can drop 25 real points off the bench versus Sacramento squad, whatever's standing at the end of the game. And I don't know if he plays full on blowout, but he just stick around for a fair bit. LaMelo only played 22 minutes yesterday. He fouled out. Well, he was in foul trouble throughout the game. He fouled out like 30 seconds to go, but he was also getting fouled out by his coach and sitting down after getting several fouls. So you can make the argument he's well rested. I know it's a back-to-back with LaMelo, and it's always kind of concerning. And they theoretically should have this game in hand, and they don't want to push him, and probably you don't need to push him against Sacramento. So, but I mean, in theory, I think he can if this game is close. I think he could play close to 30 minutes, and like you said, you put him up to the 28. Our guy in chat saying Clifford looks better. I assume he's talking about than Killian Hayes. Well, yeah, he's also like twice as much, right? Yeah, Clifford's going to play a bunch of minutes, and he's in play for sure, but he's legitimately twice as much. Hayes is 3-1 on DK, and Clifford 6-2. Yeah. Did you give a take as far as Clifford? He should play 35 minutes, possibly more, at least 30 for Sacramento.
Yeah, I think we went 36 minutes on Clifford there, but I think if you had to place a wager on somebody to play 42 plus minutes tonight, it would be Clifford for me. 6,200, like you mentioned, yeah, he's gonna look better than Killian Hayes, but yeah, like you mentioned, double the salary. I do think he's a fine play. And I think that there is some ceiling, when you look at a lot of his samples so far this season, he's been forced to sort of play around some other guys who are taking up usage and whatnot. And then if you also factor in that DeRozan's probably not going to play any more than 28 minutes, it could be a lot of the game with no Levine, no Sabonis, no Monk, no Hunter, no DeRozan. So he could be forced to take up a lot of usage there. So at 6'2", I think he's a good play.
2 more games, about 10 minutes to go until crunch time comes in. We got TJ and Noto, the Rockets, Denver, 231.5. That is the total. This is the back half of the ESPN doubleheader, front half of a back-to-back for Denver. I think this is the final game as far as 5 and 7. It's the back half of a back-to-back, and I think the back half of 3 and 4 nights. Houston had a crazy schedule. But, yeah, this is I think it's the 5th game in 7 nights. I'm fairly certain for the Rockets. I was talking about this one last week, and finally this is the end for them. So they should be pretty tired, but their coach is a madman. He doesn't seem to care. I guess they just play through everything. Who's in, who's out for this one? Well, nothing really of note for Houston, right? DFS still out. All the usuals are still out, but nothing really new for the Rockets. Denver, Jamal Murray is on the injury report. He's officially probable with his ankle. Peyton Watson, not just yet. He's got that hamstring. Cam Johnson, they said he's got a back. He's been pretty terrible. Just one of the worst signings or trades. I guess it was a trade, right? He's been super, super bad so far. But we saw a big game out of Gordon last time out as well. I think that was the last game, if I'm not mistaken. I kind of poo-pooed it, and bad job by me. He still has kind of a minutes of it, I suppose, but he was fantastic last time out. The Joker is playing here. Do we have the salary savers for Joker? I say yes. He wrecked Şengün earlier in the year. He had 2 really good starts. Last time out, he got in foul trouble against Houston. So last game against Houston wasn't good, but the previous 2, very good. Rockets, Denver, what do you got?
Yeah, Jokic clears everybody DK projection-wise for me by like 20 points almost. So, and like you mentioned, we certainly have the salary to fit Jokic. It's more so, do we have the salary to fit Jokic plus another spend up? So yeah, for me, Jokic is going to be a lock in. If I was right now, I'm only doing one lineup, but he's going to be a lock in there. I would suggest that he's probably going to be. I think if he's going to, what do we have him at 36%? I think he'll come in higher than that actually with all of this news, but I would certainly be over that. I'd probably be over 50% in large field stuff. So love Jokic tonight. I think this is a great spot. I will say in that last Denver-Houston game, watching Jokic and Şengün go back and forth is some great entertainment. So highly just tuning into that one. But if you're not playing Jokic, I think you have to play Jamal Murray, because I think Jamal Murray on his own is a pretty good play as well in this spot. I do think that he has a difficult matchup on paper. Obviously, I think he's going to see some Amin Thompson defense probably throughout the entire game, but still at 8-4, I think he's a good play. But I'm probably only getting real exposure to him in non-Jokic lineups if I was doing large field stuff, but do think that that's something that I would consider if not playing Jokic, but right now just kind of prioritizing the Joker there. Christian Brown is not a guy you typically love to play, but he's probably going to play a lot of minutes here, and at 5K, he's projecting at least good enough to get into some lineups. On the Houston side of things, not a ton of elite plays jumping out, but I do think there's some pretty good game theory plays. Right now, Reed Shepherd, what do we have him at ownership-wise?
So we got 9% on FanDuel, and DraftKings, we got Shepherd at 6%. 6.6 on DK.
Yeah, I could see him coming in a little bit higher than that. We'll see how that transpires. If he's going to be popular, he was kind of one of those guys that I had circled as someone who might be too popular for my liking. That's obviously not the case if he's going to be single-digit ownership. But right now, my favorite Houston play would be Kevin Durant here at 8.6. But again, probably not getting to a ton of him because I do like Donovan Mitchell and some other guys in that range. But if you're playing Jokic, don't mind giving KD a little bit of a bump.
Alexander in chat says, do we give a bump to televised games? This makes me want to roster KD. I kind of like it for older players or players that get a little bit more time. So the televised games, all the games are televised, obviously, but the national TV games, they bake in a few extra commercials. I don't know if coaches take that into account, but in my head, It's not the same as like island game stuff, but in my head, I feel like it's, you get a little bit more rest. I mean, it's not game rest. It's like the clock's running, but you get an extra minute, I believe, in some of the commercial breaks. Does that matter to you? You think that matters? I think it matters for a little bit incrementally, but I don't know how to really quantify it.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think it could matter for some guys. It could not matter for other guys. So it's tough to quantify. But I don't, I think that if you were taking an angle, I think maybe more than just like the narrative of, okay, everyone's watching me, let me go show out, which I think for KD, that could be something that he's the kind of player I would probably profile to fit that mold. But I think the timeout angle is also one that makes some sense, but definitely impossible to quantify.
Does Joker know that his odds have plummeted since losing the SGA as far as MVP? Did somebody tell him? He doesn't care, right? He just wants to know
I don't think he would
what
care,
race his horse is running in. That's all he cares about, right?
Yeah, he's just focused on how quickly he can get back to Serbia.
Parade, no parade.
Yeah.
He was so mad about the parade. I got to go back home, man. Gotta watch my horses. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the last game. Last game on the slate. It's the T-Wolves and the Clippers. Minnesota playing the back half of a back-to-back. Again, they're in LA, so they didn't travel. Right? Different arenas, but I imagine it's the same hotel. Taking on the Clippers tonight. 226.5 is the total. The Clippers are 2-point favorites here. We're looking at against Minnesota. Who's in? Who's out for this one? The hammer game. We're talking about Ayo Dosunmu. Dosunmu is officially questionable with his thumb. Otherwise, Minnesota fully healthy, and nothing new with the Clippers. Collins is still out with his neck. We're never going to see Bradley Beal, and Yannick Conan Niederhauser is out for the season. How do we feel about Minnesota and LA, the Clips?
Yeah, I don't have a ton of interest in Minnesota. This is probably going to be one of my least interested games, which I think it's a fine game to target because it is one with a 1.5 point spread. But for Minnesota, it's going to be a really paced down game. Minnesota's a top 10 to 12 team in terms of pace, depending on the time frame that you're looking at. And Clippers are on the other side of that. They're one of the slower teams in the NBA. I have them as 29th in adjusted pace. So should be a spot where they're playing slow pretty consistently. So for me, not a ton of interest in Minnesota. For the Clippers side, Derek Jones Jr., not usually a great permanent fantasy guy over the course of his career, but this season and specifically as of late, he's been pretty good. He's been scoring at a pretty sizable rate as of late. So he's someone that he's projecting well for me. 16 plus points in back-to-back games. He scored 16 or more in 4 of his last 7, 12 plus points in 6 of his last 7. So averaging 14 points per game. And these are just points alone over his last 10. So his scoring production has really picked up as of late. Helps that he's playing a few more minutes now. Obviously, some guys out and post-trade deadline stuff. But even with Garland and Mathurin sort of playing, he's still scoring a good amount. So I do like Derek Jones Jr. quite a bit. Darius Garland is also someone that does project pretty well here at 6'2". When looking at some of his numbers since the trade, 1.2 points per minute on DraftKings there. So, when you consider that, I would have guessed that he would came over and probably been a worse permanent producer, but he's actually seen a little bit of uptick. Obviously, small sample size. He's only played 4 games for the Clippers, but at least that's a positive to consider. A 30% assist rate. That's encouraging to see. So Garland here at 6'2", I do have some interest in as well.
All right, I'm going to get your feel it in the Plums play in just a second. Do you have any Crunch Time's knocking on the door? They're going to be here in just a second. We see Noto hanging out in chat. I believe TJ is lurking as well. Do you have any player props for the people? Any player props you've bet today? I don't think you had any posted in SAO and scores and odds. I don't think I saw any earlier today. Maybe I missed it. Any that are not posted, if you have one, we can give one to the people. Otherwise, we can move on.
Yeah, I have 2 player props I can give out. I didn't write them up in scores and odds, but I do have 2. I took Mitch Robinson over 4.5 points. Cupcake matchup there for him against the Jazz. So I like that one. I think I had him projected for like 6.7 points.
3 dunks. So
yeah, 3 dunks. Maybe we can get him to the line one time, and hopefully he can make one. Fingers crossed there. Maybe he'll do a granny shot under the legs, up his chances there. And then I also took Keontae George under 29.5 PRA. I think that one might have moved, but if that one is still at 29.5, I do like that one as well.
Jakob Poeltl officially in for Toronto. Poeltl is in Do you want to tell people about PickLabs? PickLabs, the newest RotoGrinders feature, lets you scan the best player prop and pick'ems in just seconds. As far as the prop and pick'em bets, everything is broken down for you. Edges, win rate, value. When you fire up PickLabs, you're going to be looking at a clean board. It's going to show you the plays that actually stand out across the sportsbook. There you go. The board looks just like that. It looks like it's going to show you the best plays as far as sportsbooks, not just sportsbooks, but also sites like, depending on what state you're in. If you're in the underdog streets, if you're in the prize pick streets, all that is it's going to make your life much easier. You can sort best picks to worst picks. When you see something you like, PickLabs, it's going to go ahead and build that slip and send it straight to the book of your choice. More information, check out rotogrinders.com/PickLabs. rotogrinders.com/PickLabs. All right, Kyle, Plum's time. Who you feeling? What do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the guy that we just talked about a minute ago. It's going to be Darius Garland for me at 6'2". Seen him at single-digit ownership. I'm not sure if we still have him there in lineup HQ, but if that's the case, he's a guy who I think is just going to be overlooked. I think we have him at 12%. I do think that he could be even a little bit lower than that. And I see Taylor is also on him, tagged him in lineup HQ. So I'm going to go with Darius Garland tonight. Yeah,
I just gave a refresh, and I don't know if you moved the needle or not, but 15% is what I'm saying. Let's have to refresh it again, and it's just kind of bouncing around. The ownership stuff does get refined as we close in on lock. This is DK specific for Garland. Oh, now it's down to 10. There you go. So look at that. I like that. If I was running a bunch of lineups, I'm not. I would definitely be over the field on it. All right, let's see what's your transition. We promised them. You got Notorious. You got TJ, one of the greatest DFS players in all of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. TJ Zwarich. If you want to get all technical, it's crunch time. They're here right now. What's up, boys? They're saying in chat it's a big golf week. Noto, is this the players? Is that what this is? Wait.
It's the players, all capitalized. So that's how you know it's important. They, for whatever reason, they capitalize the players, but not championship. But yeah, it's a big week. Starts tomorrow morning, and we got plenty of content if you want to play.
Who's going to get scratched? Can you tell me that? Do you have any inside information? Who's going to be the late scratch that we have to avoid this week?
I had exposure to all three of the guys that withdrew last week, so I'm probably not the guy to ask.
Well, so much for that. I tailed some of your winner bets and SAO, so sorry for the mush in advance. My apologies. I know Kyle, you write some up as well sometimes. Are you on anybody as far as golf this week?
Yeah, I have a couple of guys that I'm interested in. I think my pick to win, Curious Noto style. I like Hideki to win this week. He's my favorite outright bet.
There you go. What's up, TJ? TJ, the greatest DFS player. The arrogance of TJ.
I didn't say it. I was just agreeing with Jay Mammon in chat, who says name a single one better. That's smart person Jay Mammon is. But
but it's a big place.
I've been to one PGA tournament in my life, and it was the Players Championship. Had a good time.
Oh, nice.
There you go. That was not in Saskatoon, I imagine. You had to leave the house for that one?
Yeah, had to leave the house for that one. Go up in I was going to say Noto's neck of the woods. He doesn't live there, but like Jacksonville, I know you're a Jaguars fan.
Yeah, I'll take Jacksonville. No, who won that year? What year was it?
Some trivia for you guys. I went and I got to see Sergio Garcia win. Who did he beat in a playoff?
Oh, that's a throwback.
Ricky beat Sergio.
Chichi Rodriguez.
Jim Furyk.
Paul Goydos.
Oh,
ooh,
obviously.
Made up name.
Got to meet Jim Furyk that week, though. He was a super nice guy.
Nice. I was not going to get the Goydos, I got to say. I kind of fired off like 20 more guesses and not gonna come to me. All right.
I hadn't heard of him before that day, and I never heard of him again afterwards.
He had his 15 minutes, and that's it. Kyle, we had our hour. We had our hour, and that's it. We got to step aside and get out of here. Unless you got anything else for the road before you step aside and make way for crunch time. Anything you got for the people?
All set. Good luck, everybody. See ya.
Shout out to Kyle Murray. Hit that like button. Do subscribe. Turn on those notifications. Don't go anywhere. You got 40 minutes of crunch time. Notorious and the greatest DFS player, allegedly, in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. It's TJ's words. Go ahead, TJ.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to NBA Crunch Time here at RotoGrinders. I'm your host today, TJ Zwarich, joined by, like Dino said, the Notorious one, Derek Farnsworth. Noto, how you doing?
Doing well. What's up, chat? What's up, Bobby, in the chat? And yeah, happy, what is it, Wednesday? Man, it feels like a Friday. I was getting excited there for a minute, but yeah, doing good. Still haven't started Heat yet, but we're gonna get there this week.
There you go. I like it. Let me know what you think of that one. We got an interesting little slate ahead of us. I feel like it's a little bit better than yesterday. Yesterday, I didn't want to play anybody other than Miami, and holy crap, did Bam go absolutely wild for Miami yesterday. What were your thoughts on his 83-point performance?
Yeah, I wasn't really watching the games. We were out. I was out just taking the kids to drum lessons and dance class and all kinds of stuff. And I just got in a couple group texts with friends, and they're like, "Hey, Bam's at 64 at the end of the third." I was like, "What?" So I got excited, but then I logged into DK and saw his ownership was like 90%. So didn't really do much for me. But yeah, 83%, 83 points is absolutely wild.
Yeah, Bobby and Chad saying 83 points at 83% owned. I didn't watch it live either, but it was kind of wild to see that he shot under 50% from the field and then just racked up an absolute ton of free throws. So it was kind of one of those where I'm pro when that stuff like that happens. I saw a bunch of people freaking out on Twitter being like, that was stupid, blah, blah, blah. They just anybody could do that. I don't necessarily think anybody could do it, but I do find it very, I'm pro entertainment when somebody puts up an 80 piece. I think that's exciting. But having said that, it does kind of feel like one of those things where it's like, give any all-star 45 shot attempts and, add in another 20% usage rate for all the free throws. Kind of feels like a lot of people could get pretty close on those occasions. But alas, shout out to Bam, second most points of all time.
If you would have told me somebody scored 83 this season, I would have probably guessed 40 guys before Bam.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Bam probably would have been in that 40 range.
I would have thought he would get 40 rebounds in a game before 83 points.
Yeah, definitely. And he didn't even get 10. He got 9. He didn't even get the double-double yesterday. But let's start diving into this slate. We'll go position by position. DraftKings first, FanDuel second. We'll take your questions starting in the RotoGrinders live stream Discord. We'll go to the YouTube chat second. YouTube, make sure you are smashing that like button for us. At the point guard spot, we got Megachuk, Killian Hayes. I'm only playing one lineup today. I'm not doing my typical 150. I am going to play him in that one lineup. What do you plan to do with Killian Hayes?
Yeah, I'm doing one lineup as well, so I'm probably going to have him in my lineup. I want to play Jokic tonight, and to do that, we need value, and he's the obvious value play. We have him projected for 28 minutes. Do we have him projected to start right now?
Yes.
So, yeah, if he gets to start, he can't fail at 3-1. Even if he gets you 15, he's going to be 90% owned. So I don't see a reason to fade him. Even if you were playing 150, how many lineups would you have with him?
I'd probably have him in 150. And it's just honestly, in that scenario, I would probably just play him in 150 lineups and then make a single entry lineup too, and not play him in that single entry lineup where he'll literally be 95% owned. That's, I think, kind of how I would handle it, is lock him in the 150. Don't play him in single entry, because I'm not doing the 150. I am planning on playing him in single entry, but it's not that I even think he'll do well. It's just that I kind of feel like that 28 minutes projection is very conservative. I think his minutes ceiling is probably 40 and his minutes floor is 24. You know what I mean? They just don't have any other point guards. Maybe they'll play Neat Clifford at the point guard spot a fair amount, but they're just really, really needing some ball handlers right now. So it's like you said, it's really tough to see him failing.
Yeah, they don't even have another point guard on the active roster. So I'm with you. I think you just play him, and it's just a free square. It's going to be one less position you have to worry about tonight.
Agreed. Who else do you like at the point guard position on DK? Looking to get anybody else's we got the guard, we got the flex. Jalen Brunson projecting pretty well. Jamal Murray picking up some ownership. Anybody else you'd be wanting to get into your lineup?
Yeah, I'm okay with Brunson. He's been a high floor guy between 40 and 47 in 6 of his last 7 games. Now he gets a matchup against Utah, so could finally see a ceiling game from him. Outside of that, I kind of like Suggs a little bit. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but I like Banchero a ton as a sort of tournament play that is going to make your lineup different if you want to eat a lot of chalk. But Suggs is another way to do that. I don't worry about a matchup against Cleveland, especially with Mitchell and Harden being their backcourt. So interesting spot for Suggs for sure. The guys before us were talking about Darius Garland. I think he was Kyle's Plum's play, which I kind of like. He's been playing more minutes. The usage rate has been huge since joining the Clippers. So I think he's interesting at 6'2". I'm probably not going to play. I don't know. I worry about the Toronto guys. Like, they're completely healthy, and this game has a large spread. So I'm kind of worried about Toronto, even though they're projecting really well.
What is the spread? Is lineup HQ broken? It's telling me it's only 2.5 point spread.
Okay. Yeah, you're right.
But unless one of those Toronto guys are hurt and missing the game, I have tough getting to any of them in large quantities. Like, I feel we'll get to it. I think RJ Barrett's going to be the best one, but I'm with you one quickly. Like Ingram, quickly, Barnes, Barrett. If I don't have one of those guys missing, it's kind of tough to think we're going to get too much of a ceiling performance. I do think Barrett is going to be my favorite of that group. Daniel agrees in chat. I love the Darius Garland call. I was going to be all aboard that play, and I was kind of hoping I was going to be alone. And then Kyle swooped in before we got on the show and called him his Plum's play. And so he got there first, but I still think it's a great play. I really like Darius Garland today. As we pivot over to the shooting guard spot, not quite as egregious of a chalk play as Killian Hayes. You know, he's not going to be 80% owned, but we do have a really chalky Landry Shamet as well. Not somebody I typically like playing at all, let alone at 40+% ownership. If I'm fading one of the chalky guards, it's definitely going to be Shamet for me. I know you got him tagged as a core play. I feel like you for sure play him in cash. What are your thoughts on Shamet and then the rest of the position?
Yeah, he's not a high usage guy. Not a guy that fills up the stat sheet. He's just kind of out there. But, I mean, he's going to play 27 minutes against the Jazz. Like, that's really the argument for him at 3.6K. So, yeah, it's hard not to like him. He's obviously – if Killian Hayes wasn't, you know, such a great value, I think Shamet would be 60% owned. So, I think we're kind of getting a discount on him with Hayes projecting so well. So, I'm probably going to play both, pair him up with Jokic, and then I'm going to get different with another spend like I talked about with Banchero. But outside of that, I mean, Mathurin's been playing really well. He's had at least 39 fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games. Clifford's like the great pivot away from some of the other Kings chalk. Like Plowden's going to be popular. Hayes is going to be popular. And Nick Clifford is projected for 15% ownership. He's going to play 35 plus minutes. So I think he's kind of interesting too at 6.2K.
Very good point. Who do you like better, just straight up, Clifford or Mathurin?
Probably Mathurin, but I don't know. He's going to be higher owned for sure.
I got Mathurin in my lineup right now, but I was considering Clifford. It's just I have 3 other Kings players already, so I figured that's a pretty good tiebreaker to just go with Mathurin instead. I don't need 4 Kings players in single entry today. Outside of those guys, I like Con Knipple as a large field play. If I was playing a bunch of lineups today, he's projecting for 4% ownership on DraftKings. That's somebody that I'd be looking to get severely overweight to. And then I really like, they talked about this on the last show, but I do like the idea of fading Landry Shamet and pivoting to a Jordan Clarkson and hoping it's a blowout, or Jose Alvarado, or Diawara at the forward position. One of those guys as a pivot off of Landry Shamet today, I think is a totally viable way to get a little different in tournaments. Basically play close to something optimal and then make the Shamet pivot to one of his teammates. Small forward position. We don't have anybody that's like, you know, aggressively projecting way out ahead of the field from a point per dollar standpoint like we do at guard. But Plowden, not sure how to say his name. He's projecting for a ton of ownership today. RJ Barrett projecting for a fair amount as well. I think those are pretty easy 2 guys you can just throw in cash and keep moving on at the forward spot. But who else do you like in tournaments today?
Yeah, so Plowden and Barrett, again, if you're playing all these cheap, chalky guys like Plowden and Hayes and Shamet, like you got to get different somewhere, especially if you're playing small field stuff. So just keep that in mind when you are building. You don't want to just have the same exact lineup as everyone else. So yeah, one way to get different for me is to spend up on somebody that's not very popular. Kawhi is one of those options. He's been pretty solid, 50 plus in 3 of his last 7 games. Get access to that in the last game of the night, which is kind of nice. I don't mind Barrett. He's been solid. He's got that high usage rate. He doesn't fill up the stat sheet like some of his teammates, but I think he's fine. We have Mathurin here. We have Clifford here. And then nobody ever plays Kevin Durant. The dude's been balling. He's still under 9K on DraftKings. That game's going to be competitive against Denver. So I like him as kind of a differentiator as well.
I like the Durant call a lot. I think that's one of my favorite spend-ups on the slate. He didn't show ceiling a lot early in the year, but since this All-Star break, since Burnergate, he's been absolutely going off. Power forward. You mentioned you like Paolo Banchero. I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, I just think it's a great way to get a little bit different. He was projecting for less than 10% ownership right now. He doesn't have an ownership projection. I got to refresh, but yeah, nice matchup at home against Cleveland. Black is out, Wagner's out, and he just has triple-double type of upside. He's been playing well. Nobody ever clicks his name. The usage rate's been elite, at least 29% in 4 straight games. And again, it's just a way to get different. So he's my favorite spend-up contrarian. Outside of him, I don't love the spot. I think OG Anunoby is interesting as well. He's a guy that chucks threes. He's had double-digit 3-point attempts a couple of times in the last 4 games, and the Jazz are dead last at defending the 3-point line. So Anunoby is another way to get a little bit different tonight. He's flashed plenty of upside. He had 63 the other night against Denver. So he's a guy not going to play any Zion. Yeah, I don't love the position. There's not really anybody else that I'm looking to play, but maybe Derek Jones Jr. He's not a great per minute guy, but he's been playing much better over the last few games. So he could be interesting. He was a guy I was looking to earlier in the day before the other value opened up. So now that he's lower owned, I think he's a little bit interesting.
I think Tristan da Silva is totally viable. His salary saving option. He's over 34 times in the last 2 weeks. And so I do think he's a viable salary saver as well. If you want to punt, don't hate the idea of going down to Diawara for the Knicks. And then one other name that I want to highlight. Speaking of, we talked about Neat Clifford as a way to play the Kings while getting a little bit contrarian. Currently projecting Precious Achiuwa for single-digit ownership. And so I think he is very, very interesting at the power forward or center spot tonight. But speaking of center, take us over there. We got Jokic up top. It's easy to get to him tonight. He's going to be 30+% owned. I honestly could see it being closer to 50%, but worth it.
Yeah, it's hard not to like him. Anytime we have these slates where there's a ton of easy value plays, you just click Jokic, you take your 65 to 70 fantasy points, and you kind of move on. He's had pretty good track record against Şengün in his career too, which I like to see. Outside of him, my favorite play is probably Reynaud. He's been it's hard to trust the Kings, but he's been playing a ton of minutes. He's had 39, 51, and 44 fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games. So the upside's been there. It's not a great matchup by any means, but I think he could be interesting at 6'5". I was on Towns the other night when he had the big game against the Clippers, but that's because Mitch Rob was out. Anytime Mitch Rob is active, I just don't play Towns. He averages, it's now up to 10 fantasy points fewer per game when Robinson is playing. So for me, I'm okay fading Towns. Pirtle's a little bit interesting too. Good rebounding matchup against the Pelicans. He's been playing a little bit better. So I would go Jokic, then Reynaud, and then for tournaments, I don't mind Pirtle. And yeah, that's it.
I'm going to be going up to Jokic in my main lineup today, but I am going 2 centers because I really like Maxime Reynaud as well. Nice ceiling for him. Charlotte, better interior now that they got Diabate there, but I still think Maxime Reynaud is a guy that could put up a big ceiling today. So I'm with you there. I like him a lot. If I'm not playing Reynaud, I would probably be getting up to Achiuwa. I want to get to one of those Sacramento big guys. And outside of that, just not a lot that I like at the position. Karl Anthony Towns, probably my next favorite spend up, but it's really Jokic and the Sacramento guys for me there. I was hoping Pirtle was going to be out so I could play Mamu. But other than that, not really that strong of a center position. Makes it very easy to just go out and play Nikola Jokic. Let's swap over to FanDuel. We'll go position by position over there. I do want to tell you about Pick Labs. It's the newest RotoGrinder feature that lets you scan the best player prop and pick 'em bets in seconds. Everything is broken down for you from edges and win rates to value. It's a clean board showing which plays stand out across sportsbooks and sites like Underdog and Prize Picks. When you see something you like, Pick Labs builds the slip and sends it straight to the book of your choice. You can find it at rotogrinders.com/picklabs, and you'll be wondering how this wasn't a thing already. My favorite thing to do with it is we got all the expert picks right there from the RotoGrinders props and pick them from the scores and odds. And so you can just go through the expert picks, make yourself a little parlay of your favorites. That's been one of my favorite ways to use Pick Labs so far. But I also want to let you know that the NASCAR projections are live for the 2026 season, including projections from RotoDoc and Stevie TPFL. You'll get access to articles and videos on the RotoGrinders breaking down each race. The lineup HQ optimizer will come preloaded with player and ownership projections for the trucks, NOAPS, and Cup Series. Additionally, you'll see access to Stevie's betting picks, as well as exclusive access to the NASCAR channel in the RotoGrinders live stream Discord. We'll hit FanDuel here. We'll hit YouTube second. YouTube, make sure you are hitting that like button for us. No. FanDuel point guard. We got Killian Hayes still near 80% over here. It's Hayes, and who's the second one we're playing?
Yeah, so he's not quite as good of a value because he's 36 over here, but still there's not like a ton of obvious pivots. So I would still play Hayes in single entry cash games. Large field, I think he's fine too. Outside of that, LaMelo Ball is underpriced over on FanDuel. 8.2 is a solid option. The upside's always going to be there. Obviously, he has a lower floor than some of the other superstars, but if that game stays competitive, man, it's an elite matchup against the Kings, and it's on the road, which helps. I think it's a back-to-back for them as well. We talked about Garland. I think he's viable over here too. Brunson at 9K is solid. Probably not going to play any Donovan Mitchell. I just have a hard time playing him or Harden when they're both active. Are you in that same boat?
100%. Like I'm personally I think I might be doing this even if I was playing 150, just skipping that first game because it's two good defensive teams, fairly slow paced matchup. But here on out, the rest of the year, like if both Mitchell and Harden are playing, I just don't see any reason to go to either one of them. If one of them is out, then I'm loading up on the other one. But while they're both in, I'm with you. I just don't see any need to get there. I'd rather pay up to Brunson. I'd rather pay up to Jamal Murray. Amen Thompson, I think I actually like better than all of them.
Yeah, he's man, I wrote him up earlier as a contrarian play, and I kind of forgot about him with all the other value plays. So he's been awesome. Denver struggles against point guards. I like that call quite a bit.
Take us over to the shooting guard spot. Landry Shamet projecting for 30%, not quite as egregious over here. You got a little bit cheaper of a Neat Clifford popping as well. I think my favorite is Brandon Miller, 7,900 cheaper over here than he is on DraftKings.
Yeah, I like the idea of including one of LaMelo or Brandon Miller in each lineup on FanDuel because they're both kind of underpriced. I don't know if they'll both get there with the potential blowout, but I like having one or the other. Shamet's here. He's a good value play, like I mentioned on DraftKings. Clifford, a little bit cheaper over here. The shooting guard position isn't as strong, so he's kind of projecting as the best RG value right now. You have the Toronto guys, Barrett and Quickly. Do you have a preference between the two with them being $100 apart?
Sorry, I was reading something. One more time.
No worries. Do you have a preference between the Toronto guys, Barrett and Quickly, since they're only $100 apart on FanDuel?
I think it's Barrett. I kind of always view Quickly as a guy who has a higher ceiling by a bit, but Barrett just so much more likely to get there. And so I think he's just a lot more consistent. And so Barrett, I think, is my very slight preference.
I'm going to slightly lean Quickly, but that's just because I never play Barrett. I don't know why I never do, but the usage rate is higher.
I was nervous throughout that whole NBA trade deadline season because I know typically RJ Barrett is not a guy that people have liked over the course of the year. Like he's a volume shooter, doesn't do a ton, but he's been so good for the Raptors this year from like a real life basketball standpoint. He's been like their stud wing defender out of nowhere. And so I've become very pro RJ Barrett this year where I wasn't necessarily before.
And they struggled when he got hurt, right?
Yeah, they were just trash. All of a sudden, without him, they were trash. There was rumors they were going him for Sabonis, and I just wanted that to not happen so bad because I'm the biggest Sabonis hater. But take us over to small forward.
Sabonis is one of those guys that kind of like Drummond in that he gets stats, but I don't know if he's like valuable for your team, you know?
Great offensively, you know, but just
right.
absolutely useless on the other end.
Okay, small forward, power forward?
Small.
Forward. So we got Plowden here, 3,900 for a guy that's probably going to play 33, 35 minutes. I'll take my chances with him. Brandon Ingram is more interesting here than he is on DraftKings. He has struggled the last 3 games, but man, great spot, great bounce back matchup against the Pelicans. So I think he's interesting at 7-8. You have Clifford, you have Shamet. We talked about Brandon Miller and LaMelo. I like using one of them in each lineup. And then again, OG Anunoby, I don't know why I can't say his name, but Anunoby, great 3-point shooter, chucks a ton. Jazz are dead last in the NBA defending the 3. He's probably my favorite mid-range tournament play tonight.
Some super low owned options. I don't mind Diawara as an all-out punt, $3,700. Nobody's playing Benedict Mathurin over here on FanDuel because he's 7,100. Still do think there is a ceiling there if they're going to let him play the minutes. And then I don't mind some Con Knipple as well. Power forward position. You can play Brandon Ingram here, like Noto said. He's been struggling, but we know the ceiling's there with Brandon Ingram. We know he can put the ball in the hoop. 7,800 is a little too cheap for this type of matchup. Durant, a little chalkier over here, but still underpriced. I like this spot for him quite a bit. And then Achua is the other one I wanted to shout out. Little higher owned over here, but still do really like him in this position. Who do you like at power forward?
Yeah, I think Kevin Durant's interesting at 8.8. Again, he's been playing great. I think that game's going to be competitive throughout. Banchero, 3% ownership over on FanDuel. Small forward, power forward eligible. Again, one of my favorite spends is if you're eating a lot of chalk with the value plays, and if you're playing Jokic too, one way to get different is play Banchero. I like Anunoby. Kawhi Leonard is interesting as well. Man, Precious has been on a tear. It just is like such a sticker shock. It's 7-1 that I'm having a hard time. Like in single entry, I can't do it.
Yeah, it feels weird. It feels weird for sure because that's like a 4K player. That's a 4K player. He's been that way his entire career. But now they're just randomly throwing them out there for 40 minutes every now and again. Center spot, Maxime Reyno projecting as the highest owned center spot over here. One lineup, you going Reyno, you going Jokic, or you going elsewhere?
Going Jokic for sure, but I do like Reyno. And Jokic at 18% ownership. Sign me up for that. DraftKings, he's going to be way popular. So, but I think if you're not playing Jokic, you got Reyno. It's really the only other guy I would go to. Diabate is interesting, but probably not a high ceiling guy. So I would go Jokic or Reyno.
Agreed there. Karl Anthony Towns is another guy I'd want to throw out there for large field tournaments. I think he's a really strong play tonight. But center's just such a weak spot, so much weaker than usual. Like it's usually a pretty strong position, but it's just absolutely ugly out there today. Let's start taking some QQs. I will go to the RotoGrinders live stream Discord chat first. I'll go to the YouTube chat second. We still got lots and lots of time here until lock, so make sure you get your questions in about NBA, about the MLB season upcoming, about dinner tonight, about what's going on this weekend, whatever, what have you. Get those questions in and hit that like button for us. We didn't have a movie Monday or a TV Tuesday because it's Wednesday, but we still need you to hit that like button for us. Got over 300 viewers, should easily be able to bump those likes up over 100. Take that mouse, slide it over, give it a little click. Is it really pronounced Pirtle? Jakob Pirtle? Yes, it is. Poeltl, but it's pronounced Pirtle, like turtle. Great question. Get more of that. More of that. Are you interested in any Brook Lopez on DraftKings?
Pirtle actually went to my alma mater, so I found out about his weird last name way early. Brook Lopez, I did earlier in the day, but you can't really play him on FanDuel with the other center options, and on DraftKings, I just like the Kings value better.
On that note, Pirtle or Lopez on DK single entry?
I would go Pirtle.
Another Pirtle question, Pirtle or Reyno for last piece DK single entry? I like Reno there.
I like Reno too, but I think both are pretty interesting.
DKGPP, I already have Garland. Should I go Brunson and Derek Jones or Kawhi and Shamit? I think I like the Brunson Derek Jones side a little bit more. How about you?
Man, that's tough. Yeah, I'll slightly go that way.
How many Kings in single entry on DK? I think you want 2 to 3. I got 3 in my lineup right now. I think the slate is wide enough that 4 is probably a little too many. 2 to 3, I think, is the right amount of Kings for DK single entry. FanDuel GPP, favorite contrarian spend up and low owned value. Sorry, somebody just sent all caps looking for you to answer next. That was the next question. But FanDuel contrarian spend up and low owned value. You're getting sneaky. Who do you like?
Yeah, I'm going Banchero for the spend up and then low owned value FanDuel, right?
Yeah.
Because I like Derek Jones on DraftKings, but he's kind of expensive on FanDuel. So I will go. Do you have one off the top of your head? De Silva, maybe?
Yeah, I don't mind the De Silva call. For what it's worth, I think if you're playing Banchero, you don't need a low owned value.
Yeah.
You can just, I'll say Kobe White. Kobe White, I think somebody that can go up and put a ton of points up against Utah, and he's currently projecting for 2% ownership on FanDuel. So I think that's an interesting one. What Kings value do you like instead of Lopez is the one in all capital letters.
Yeah, you can play Plowden, you can play Hayes, you can play Reno. Those are probably my 3 favorites, but Clifford, nobody's going to be on Clifford, I don't think.
FanDuel GPP, how do you feel? FanDuel GPP, Noto, do you feel these 3 guys are solid ways to be different? I'm playing Anthony Edwards, Aaron Gordon, and DeJounte Murray. What do you think?
I don't mind Edwards. Don't love Gordon. Came off the huge game the other night, but I'm not buying into that. He's still not playing a bunch of minutes.
He had almost all those points in like the first 6 minutes of the game.
That was wild. I do like DeJounte. I think he's probably my favorite of the 3.
All right. FanDuel, Ball and Miller, the Charlotte combo, or Barrett and Brunson? We also did just get Keontae George in.
I'm going to go the second one. I don't love playing Ball and Miller together on sizable slates.
I got Miller right the other day. He absolutely smashed, but I feel like I often get that coin flip wrong of which of those Charlotte guys to go with. Thoughts on Harden? We talked about that. We don't really like going to either Harden or Mitchell when both of those guys are healthy. Dean Wade or Patrick Baldwin for FanDuel GPP? Oof.
Yeah, that's kind of tough. I guess I would go. Let me look at Baldwin real quick. I mean, we haven't projected for 16 minutes. I guess I would go Dean Wade, but I don't feel great about either of them.
Prices don't really line up here, but Suggs or KD, DK single entry.
I mean, both.
Yeah.
So it depends on who they're paired with.
Depends who they're paired with. Just based on which would I rather build around, I guess I'd go KD, but it really does matter who you're going to be pairing them with there. Let's see. What are your thoughts on Cody Williams as a value on DK?
Wasn't really on my radar. I don't know. The Jazz are just so hard to trust. We haven't projected for 32 minutes. He's been playing pretty well, so he's an interesting way to get different.
Shout out to Powered One, breaking out a movie that I haven't seen in a really long time, but loved when I was a little kid, Master of Disguise. Am I not purtly enough for the Purtle Club? Purtle. That was a fun one. That was a fun one. Must plays in DK Cash. For Noto's core plays today, we got Nikola Jokic, Plowden, Landry Shamet, Killian Hayes. 3 guys under 4K, and the expensive Jokic agreed with all of those. I would maybe throw in a RJ Barrett for DK Cash, somebody that's feeling pretty necessary as well. I like getting Reno in there, but definitely those 4 cheapies and Jokic. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at FanDuel.
I think they're the same.
Probably, yeah. I know, because all 4 of those guys would be Cord. Yeah, exact same. So Plowden, Shamet, Hayes, Jokic, throw in some RJ Barrett and or Maxime Reynaud as well, and you are cooking. What are your thoughts on the Utah players today? I didn't plan on getting to any of them, especially with Keontae George playing. I think my favorite would be Ace Bailey or Filipowski, but I don't really have the need to get to any of them. How about you?
I mean, Filipowski's been balling, but the minutes just aren't consistent. Ace Bailey, the minutes are consistent, but the production hasn't been super consistent. So probably be Cody Williams if I'm playing anybody.
Are 3 Knicks too many with the big spread tonight?
No.
No? Who would be your top 3 Knicks?
Brunson, Shamet, and OG.
Yeah, I was originally thinking 3 would be too many, but I kind of forgot about how cheap Shamet is, and so I now agree with you. I agree 3 is nothing wrong with that whatsoever. We got no questions left with about 8 minutes, but I haven't asked you your slate breaker, your plums play. Who do you think is taking everything down tonight? Who do you think we're going to need?
I'm going to go Banchero. He's my way to get different. If he gets me 55, I think I'm going to be sitting pretty.
I want to say Darius Garland because that is who I was planning on going with earlier, but I don't want to be copycatting Kyle, so I'm going to go Maxime Reyno. Not as sneaky, but I do think he is going to be the slate breaker that is necessary tonight. Keep getting those questions in. Let me double check if we got a couple more. What do you think of a game stack of the Magic and Cleveland game? I'm just Xing that game personally, but I know you like Banchero.
Yeah, not a game stack for me, but I just don't like anybody out in Cleveland, so that's kind of hard for me. I do have a question for you. I got 6,200 left. Utility. Do I go Garland or Mathurin?
I'd go Garland.
That's what I got. So
I have both personally, but I would go Garland of those two, I think. 2 questions back to back. Thoughts on Derek Jones and chalk Derek Jones. What could possibly go wrong? Are you getting him in single entry today?
Yep. He made my lineup on DraftKings, although I don't think he's going to be too chalky. What do we got him at 17%, so that's not too bad.
All right. Trey Murphy. Will Trey Murphy have a Bam Adebayo night? Are you expecting 83 points from Trey Murphy today?
I'll take the under.
Over under 82.5. We're going with under on that one. All right. I think that is that's going to do it because we have ran out of questions. Thank you so much to everyone for tuning in. Make sure you hit the like button on the way out if you have not already done so. I don't think there's any injury news we are still waiting on. I think Ayo Dosunmu is questionable, and that's really it. I don't think we're waiting on anything else here, and that one's not really that big of a. That one's not going to be something that we care too much about, anyways. So. Thank you so much to everyone for tuning in. Good luck on all your contests. We will be back tomorrow. On behalf of myself, Noto, Steve doing an incredible job behind the scenes. We will see you next time. Peace.